There are places you enter willingly, believing you are safe, while they quietly dismantle your mind. You clicked this video expecting physical dangers, bad neighborhoods, economic collapse, violent conflicts, obvious threats that destroy people overnight. But you are looking at the wrong map. True ruin rarely arrives as a sudden catastrophe. It does not always come as an enemy attack, a financial collapse, or a visible crisis. Real destruction spreads slowly. It begins in the psychological environments you tolerate every day, the spaces that weaken your ambition, cloud your judgment, and drain your power without you noticing. Machiavelli warned rulers about the hidden dangers of human environments and associations. Centuries later, those dangers still exist, only now they are more subtle and far more dangerous. This video reveals the invisible psychological environments that quietly sabotage your success and keep you trapped in cycles of weakness and confusion. Pay close attention, especially to the second environment, because there is a strong chance you are sitting inside it right now. Most people fail not because they lack intelligence or talent, but because they live in environments designed to keep them small. Ruin is not an accident. Ruin is a process, and it begins in places that feel comfortable. The first place is the martyr's court, the echo chamber of grievance. When plans collapse and failures accumulate, most people seek understanding. They turn to people who agree with them, people who sympathize, people who reassure them that the system is unfair and the outcome was inevitable. These environments feel supportive, they feel validating, they feel safe, but they quietly destroy ambition. Machiavelli observed that people naturally blame fortune for their failures and praise themselves for success. When you surround yourself with people who constantly validate your excuses, your growth slowly dies. In the martyr's court, failure is never your responsibility. It becomes the economy, the algorithm, the system, or your past. Comfort becomes paralysis. History provides a clear example in the fall of Piero Soderini, the Florentine statesman during Machiavelli's era. Soderini surrounded himself with idealists and moralists who reinforced his worldview. When the Medici returned with military force, he hesitated. He trusted in fairness and virtue rather than decisive action. He lost power, lost influence, and died in exile. He was not destroyed by enemies alone. He was destroyed by the environment he trusted. When you live inside the martyr's court, you surrender responsibility. Instead of asking how to improve, you begin asking who to blame. Sympathy becomes a drug. It feels like support, but functions as restraint. The moment you start seeking comfort instead of correction, you enter the first stage of decline. But if the martyr's court destroys ambition through sympathy, the second environment destroys it through something even more dangerous: praise. The court of flattery is one of the oldest traps in history. Machiavelli warned that leaders are always surrounded by flatterers, and that human beings are naturally vulnerable to praise because it feeds self-deception. Today, flattery rarely comes from royal courts. It comes from social approval. It comes from followers who praise your ideas before you execute them. It comes from friends who support bad decisions to avoid conflict. It comes from environments that celebrate potential instead of results. These environments reward identity instead of achievement. Your brain receives the same dopamine response from talking about success as it does from actually achieving it. When you receive applause without effort, the hunger that drives growth disappears. History shows how dangerous this is. King Perseus of Macedon surrounded himself with advisors who praised his strategy and reassured him of victory. When he faced Rome at the Battle of Pydna, reality destroyed him within hours. He was not defeated on the battlefield alone. He was defeated by the illusion of competence created by his environment. Praise without pressure produces weakness. If you are constantly praised, you stop improving.
But avoiding praise, many people enter the third trap, the sanctuary of hypotheticals. Here, progress is replaced with preparation. Plans become endless, strategies become theoretical, execution is postponed in the name of perfection. Machiavelli believed fortune favors decisive action. Waiting for perfect conditions guarantees failure. Many intelligent people spend years researching, planning, and preparing while never taking meaningful action. Perfectionism becomes a disguise for fear. Ideas remain safe because they are never tested. But knowledge without execution has no value. The world rewards results, not intentions. The fourth environment is the hall of false comparisons, the modern digital arena of endless measurement. Here you compare your real life to the edited highlight reels of others. You begin chasing paths that were never meant for you. Machiavelli warned that people often imitate the success of others without understanding the conditions that created it. Envy destroys strategy. When you abandon your strengths to copy someone else, you become predictable and weak. History shows this clearly in the fall of Carthage, a civilization that dominated naval warfare but abandoned its advantage to compete with Rome on land. They lost everything by fighting the wrong battle. Comparison distorts direction. The fifth environment is the chamber of indebtedness, the trap of favors and obligations. Machiavelli understood that power often comes through dependency rather than force. Cosimo de' Medici controlled Florence not with armies, but with financial obligations. Those who accepted his help became dependent on him. Favors often create invisible chains. Shortcuts often cost independence. Nothing is truly free. When you accept benefits without clear boundaries, you surrender control over your future decisions. The final environment is the altar of public opinion. This is where powerful individuals lose themselves trying to maintain approval. Machiavelli understood that public opinion is unstable and impossible to control. The crowd supports you one day and turns against you the next. When you base your decisions on acceptance, you lose authority over your own direction. Explaining yourself constantly weakens your position. Approval becomes a form of dependency. Real power requires the ability to be misunderstood. These 6 environments, grievance, flattery, hesitation, comparison, obligation, and approval, form the architecture of psychological ruin. They appear harmless, they appear supportive, they appear necessary, but they slowly dismantle independence and clarity. Most people believe their struggles come from lack of talent or discipline. In reality, the problem is often environmental. You cannot grow in poisoned soil. Machiavelli did not teach survival, he taught control. To build real power, you must become ruthless about the environments you tolerate. Your attention is territory. Your mind is a fortress, and every environment you enter is attempting to occupy it. The question is simple. Is this environment sharpening your mind or weakening it? Because the spaces you choose today determine the person you become tomorrow. And if you understand that truth, you stop being a victim of circumstances and become the architect of your own power.